what happened when you guys decided to strap the Rocket to the Ultimate Warrior?
You know, it's interesting. You say we guys decided to strap the Rocket to the Ultimate Warrior. You know, when the Ultimate Warrior first came in, he had been wrestling in Dallas. He had broken in the Memphis territory, started out in California, went to Memphis, then came to Mid-South, and left Mid-South unceremoniously running from Bill Watts' baseball bat one night. But I
don't know that story. Smarten me up on that. What's that story?
Well, it was during the time the Blade Runners were there, which was Rock and Sting, and obviously we know what the career of Sting became. And there was a time Bill Watts had come back. It was like the Stampede Again, or the Last Stampede Again, something like that. But Bill had a baseball bat he used to use and a cattle prod, and last time that we saw a guy by the name of, I think his name was David Strawn. He was Korchenko, and then shortly after that, it was Rock, Blade Runner Rock, who was Jim Hellwig, and they just had enough of Bill and left the territory and didn't come back. But Hellwig went on to wrestle as a Dingo Warrior in World Class Championship Wrestling, and he did okay there. Gary Hart took a liking to him, and Gary helped Hellwig along the way. And he, you know, actually experienced some mid-card status there and did okay at the time. But Hellwig was looking for something else and came up to the WWF at the time. And obviously, Vince was enamored by the physique of the Ultimate Warrior because he was built like a Greek god. He was a huge guy. And I'll tell you a funny story about Warrior. He had come in, he'd done some dark matches, and was working what we called C-Towns. And the C-Towns were, you ran an A-Town, which would, for argument's sake, be in New York. You'd run a B-Town, let's call that maybe Cincinnati, Ohio. And then you ran your C-Towns, which were
Huntsville,
Alabama, things like that. No, Huntsville would probably be a B-Town, but yeah, it could be a C-Town sometimes. But it was your smaller venues.
Right.
It was
5, 6, 7, 8,000 seat joints.
Yeah, or even smaller than that sometimes. But it was an opportunity to get guys work, and at the time we were hot, so it's just the WWF brand in and of itself drew. But we put Warrior on those, and he was traveling around. So a funny story, at the very first Survivor Series in Richland, it was in Ohio, it was a suburb of Cleveland, and we're there, it's Thanksgiving Day, and there's a huge catering layout. And we had turkey and sauerkraut. Why we had sauerkraut? Well, I know why we had sauerkraut, because the gentleman that ordered the catering was German and always had sauerkraut for his Thanksgiving. So we had turkey and all this stuff. But the Warrior, Hellwig, is going through the line and loading his plate up. I mean, mashed potatoes and dressing and just tons and tons and tons of turkey and sweet potatoes. Had like 2 or 3 pieces of pie. And Hulk is watching this and seeing Hellwig go through the line and says, well, that big bastard can do it. You know, I can do it. And Hulk loads up his plate, and after Hulk finishes, he's all blowed up and stuffed to the gills, and then he's like, oh, brother, how the hell can you eat that much? He says, and then go out and work. He says, oh, I'm not working. Hulk loaded himself up thinking, I can do that, and Hellwig wasn't working. But anyway, so Hellwig came in and worked the C-Towns, got a little of experience behind him, and when we were ready to debut him on TV, the dilemma came up as to what the hell do you call him? And Vince didn't know what the hell a Dingo Warrior was.
Right.
Not sure what a dingo was at the time.
What month did he come in?
I have no idea.
Online leads us to believe he came in summer of 87, which would have been right after you got there, right?
Yeah, he did come right after I got there. Yes, as a matter of fact. And he came in and, like I said, worked the C-Towns. But when it was time to put him on TV, Vince, who had these big production meetings prior to TV, is like, okay, we got this kid coming in, and he wrestled down south as the Dingo Warrior. You guys have all seen him. And they had used the name the Dingo Warrior in the towns when Warrior worked in house shows. But Vince was like, I need a new name for him.
Right.
I don't like Dingo Warrior. I don't know what the hell that means. I don't know what the hell that is. Let's come up with a name for him.
Was there any thought given at the time that Kerry Von Erich was using the modern-day Warrior and that the Road Warriors were on top? I mean, how many Warriors do we need?
The exact two examples that were brought up in the meeting. And that was the argument not to use Warrior because of, well, they got a Ultimate Warrior and you got the Road Warriors. And I believe it was Jack Lanza who made the comment that, well, this guy could still be a warrior. He could be the Ultimate Warrior. Wow. And Vince liked that. So he was dubbed the Ultimate Warrior. And I believe Vince's comment was along the lines of, well, if it worked for those guys, then it'll work for this kid, and he'll be the Ultimate Warrior. And he was born.
I like it. So not too long after he debuts, he starts to get, lots of jobber matches and is on television, then ultimately makes his debut at WrestleMania 4, ending a brief little thing he had with Hercules, obviously really focusing on the body stuff. He does some early stuff with Bobby Heenan and the Weasel suit. You were a big fan of Bobby Heenan and a great friend of his. Do you have any memories of Warrior working with Bobby in the Weasel suit?
Bobby hated working with Warrior because Jim didn't listen, and he was so frenetic. He was so hyped up in all of his matches and everything that he did that he was going so much, he just didn't listen a lot. And Bobby was the kind of guy, Bobby was so easy to work with and great at everything that he did. And it was just a little tough for Bobby at that time, especially at his age, and work with a young guy that didn't care.
Right.
Per se, and...
Well, when you say didn't care, do you mean about...
people's bodies and what he did to them, and if he hurt them or not.
So you're saying he was reckless?
He was reckless, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, was that based on he didn't care, or he didn't know any better because he was young to the business?
Well, he didn't know any better, but I say he didn't care, and that's me, my thoughts. And folks, again, these are my opinions. These are my memories. And you know how I remember things, and you often laugh at, how do you remember that? I remember things on how they affected me.
Right.
And what impact they had on me. So it's my memories and my, my feelings on this, and that's, what actually happened. But I felt that Warrior was reckless early on and later on. But at that time, especially working with Bobby, he took liberties with Bobby. Bobby's not a tough guy, not in the greatest shape at the time. And, it was what it was. But it was entertaining, and it was a good boost for the Warrior.
Well, the boost would continue. He actually goes on at I think it's the second SummerSlam. No, maybe the first SummerSlam. He beats the Honky Tonk Man for the Intercontinental title. And
the greatest Intercontinental champion of all time, Honky Tonk Man.
This is just months after the whole Ted DiBiase thing that we had talked about before, that involved the Macho Man and, what may or may not have happened with that Intercontinental belt. But now we're in the SummerSlam, and he smashes Honky. Any pushback from Honky that you remember on him dropping the belt there?
No.
In that way?
No, not at all. And it was a quick surprise type deal.
Right.
And Warrior was a surprise, hit the ring, bing, 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 hit the ropes, big shoulder tackle, press, 1, 2, 3. And he was made.
How big of a part, in your opinion, of the Ultimate Warrior's persona and his success could be attributed to the phenomenal pairing of the Jim Johnston theme song that he had?
Oh, God. I think it was a big of it. Because, again, that frenetic beat, it fit. It fit the mood. It fit the entrance. And they complemented each other very well.
No, I agree. I thought that it was perfect for him, and he had a lot of success. He goes on to get into a little bit of a feud with Rick Rude. They do a series of pose-down things that ultimately results in a scuffle. WrestleMania 5 is here. Bobby holds his foot. Roode gets the pin. They flip the title at SummerSlam. And then that leads to a series of matches with Andre the Giant, which Andre at that point was really a special attraction, working just main events and stuff like that. So I imagine on the house shows, Warrior Andre was the top billed thing. Would that be fair to say, Eddie John?
Yeah, it was. But I'll give you another little piece that's kind of funny for you historians. If you want to go back and if you have the original footage, I have no idea if it is edited on the WWE network or not. But you go back to the first Royal Rumble that was on pay-per-view. It was in the Summit in Houston, Texas, and there was a pose down that you referred to with Rick Rude and the Ultimate Warrior. And the pose down would culminate at the end with Rick Rude spraying Ultimate Warrior in the face
with tanning oil,
with the baby oil.
Right.
And Warrior is so hyped up and so into it and has his eyes closed and is posing. And Rude is spraying him in the oil, which Warrior's supposed to react to. But it takes forever. Rude finally just nails him because Warrior just doesn't react to it. He's so hyped up and so into the moment that he forgets to sell. Yeah, he forgets what the deal is. But then moving forward, they do their thing at WrestleMania. We moved on to Andre. And the idea at that time was Andre the Giant being one of the biggest figuratively and literally stars in the entire world. It was, let's give Warrior a rub and get him into a program with Andre. And Andre was willing to put him over every night and make the guy. So in hindsight being 2020, it wasn't the best idea the way that it went about it because the matches lasted about 30 seconds. It was kind of reminiscent of the Honky Tonk Man where Andre would be in the ring, Warrior would come out with his entrance, hit the ropes, give Andre a big tackle and a big splash, 1, 2, 3, and go around the ring with his music and be gone. If you blinked, you missed it.